So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Okay, friends and neighbors, here we go. This is the big week. Yes, indeed, the Bill Press Show. Monday, February 1, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. But you know where all the action is. On Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. The action is in Iowa. Of course, let the voting begin finally. Finally. We stop the talk and we get around to some action with the Iowa caucuses happening this evening. And the big question is, it looks like it's going to be mild weather, no snow until late tonight or maybe tomorrow. So there should be a big turnout, the big turnout that's good for Donald Trump and good for Bernie Sanders. The latest poll heading into the caucuses shows Donald Trump with a 5-point lead over Ted Cruz, 28-23 on the Republican side. Marco Rubio hoping for a third-place finish, polling at 15%. Now, again, can Donald Trump get his supporters out to caucus for the first time ever for most of them? On the Democratic side, of course, it is a real neck-and-neck race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. Hillary up 3 points over Bernie Sanders, which is certainly within the margin of error. In other news, that big Fox debate without Donald Trump last Thursday sank in the polls, the second lowest rating ever. Still got 12 million people, but that's the second lowest of all the debates that we've had so far. Bernie Sanders reporting he had a good January. Raised $20 million in individual contributions, average contribution $27, over 770,000 individual donors feeling the burn. Yes, indeed. So much to talk about. It's a big, big day. Give us a call. Join the fun at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Today, in this country, we are having a conversation about police violence, the killing of black men, and what all that means. It is sad that this is happening and that every day there's a new incident to cause us to keep thinking about it and talking about it. But it is extraordinary that the American people are having to deal with this every day, whether you're watching CNN or MSNBC, Fox, or ABC News. All the news channels are talking about police violence and what does that mean against black people. Many people probably look at that, certainly have looked at it in the past, and they have said that these poor black men are doing bad things, and that's why they are ending up in confrontations with police without any understanding of their lives of these poor black young men. Part of what has been going on for decades is that poor black people live in communities that suffer from hyper surveillance of the police. The police are more likely to be in their communities. The police are more likely to arrest them. The police are more likely to stop them even if they're not doing anything. And that is what is so hard for the American people to believe, that you would get stopped and searched and arrested by the police and not doing anything. But this is starting to come out as people are telling the stories over and over again. But this has been the condition, this hyper-surveillance by police, making it more likely for people to get a record, to be known by the police, and then once they get in the system, it is almost impossible to get out because of the whole system of being on parole and missing an appointment or fraternizing with a person who has a criminal record, getting you right back in the jail, and then going back again and again and again. This is coming to be seen by the American people in a way that it has never been seen before. But why are people in these communities in the first place? That's getting peeled away. People are there because of housing discrimination. They are there because this is the only place where affordable housing can be found. They are there because that's where their families live, and people are drawn to being in communities where they are comfortable. The combination keeps people in these low-income communities where they are an easy target for hyper-surveillance and then everything that comes from it. And so as we think about these issues, we have to understand that while you as an individual in this society, as a white individual, you may not carry personal racism, but that does not keep the system from operating in a racist way.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Enough talk. Let the voting begin. Get right down to it. Finally, tonight in Iowa. Hey, hello, everybody. Looking at you out there on Free Speech TV, looking at you out there on the radio. Here we are, The Bill Press Show, Monday, February 1. The day we've been waiting for and building up to. Yes, indeed. 1,500 candidate rallies by the time count of the New York Times. 60,000 television ads. And Iowans finally get a chance to go out and caucus. And damn it, they better turn out tonight in big numbers after all the buildup. The least they can do is make it worthwhile and get those numbers up there to make it a good show tonight. We're counting on the people of Iowa to do that. Hello, 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 wherever you are in this great land of ours. We welcome you and thank you for joining us this morning as we boom out to you from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., with the news of the day, the political news here at home and news around the world. We'll tell you what's going on. And look forward to hearing from you what you think about it all. Give us a holler at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. Let us hear from you on Twitter at BP Show for reasons we will tell you about here at the top of the hour. Twitter was very busy over the weekend. And we will also take your comments and look forward to your comments on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Happy Monday, Bill.
Hello, hello.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for making it in.
Yes, sir.
All right, with Ray Rogers here. As always, to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Put you through just an intense grilling to see if you make it on the air. Good luck. Right? She's tough, man.
She's pretty tough, man. I got to tell you.
All right.
You better bring your A game if you want to get through.
Cyprian Bowling's tough, too. He won't put us on the air unless we're looking good. So our video, there it is, yeah. Well, you know, Chris, he may not make it, I think.
Yeah.
He may not make it. So he's been thinking about, well, what do I do if I don't win, you know? And, hey, Why not a stand-up comic? Why not, somebody who just does impressions of other people, of politicians, right? A lot of people make a living that way, right? Chris Christie, here's his audition.
The wall's a beautiful, spectacular wall. It's going to have a door. It's going to have a door that people can go in and out of. The good people can come in. The bad people go out. That's what we're going to do. We're going to build a wall. It's going to be an incredible wall. It's an unbelievable wall. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to have my name on it. It's going to be incredible.
Calm down now.
He's good friends with Jimmy Fallon. He may have picked up a couple tricks from.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good point, right? Yeah, but still, I think it's maybe the worst Donald Trump
It's
impression.
pretty bad Donald Trump impression.
Worst Donald Trump impression I've ever heard. Yeah. Well, tomorrow night, maybe tonight I'll try Bill Clinton or something. You just got to.
Yeah. Just keep trying, man.
Yeah.
One of them's got to stick.
Maybe you ought to go back and just be governor of New Jersey.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Try that on for a change.
On a Monday, we'll talk to Elias Isquith from Salon, as we always do. Jane Mayer joins us. Great new book out called Dark Money. Jane Mayer of The New Yorker and The New York Times. And then we'll have Jenna Johnson in from The Washington Post as well. Lots going on. Bernie talking yesterday about my new book. But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. So we've talked in the past about Franklin's Barbecue in Austin, Texas. It's a very well-known barbecue place, and they're notorious for having a very, very, very long line to get in. People start lining up to get into the line at like 8 a.m.
like 12 Bones in Asheville when I went there.
People start lining up at like 8 a.m. to get in for the 11 a.m. opening.
No.
It's a legendary line. It's crazy.
Worse than Rose's Luxury.
Yeah, right. So the New York Times did a little profile of Franklin's Barbecue.
Yeah.
And turns out that even Kanye West, the rapper, tried to cut the line and get in. He asked if he could cut the line. And the general manager, Benjamin Jacobs, said, no, we have a strict no cutting policy. In fact, they said in the whole time that the place has been open, only one person has been allowed to cut the line.
Barack
Obama. In 2015, Obama cut the line with the blessing of Franklin Barbecue. So no word on if Kanye actually waited in the line. I would guess he probably did not, because it's a long time to wait. But yeah, only one person could do it. Barack Obama. Big news out of the NFL. Calvin Johnson, a.k.a. Megatron from the Detroit Lions, might be the best receiver in the NFL. He told a couple of family members, a close circle of friends, that he's going to retire. He's going to retire at the end of the 2015-2016 season. Says he told his coach, Jim Caldwell, the day after the regular season ended. Some people would argue he's at the height of his game right now, but he says he wants to just walk away. 9 seasons in the NFL. Reportedly, he says his body is just sort of beaten down. He's got lingering ankle injuries, and just general body soreness. Says he doesn't want to play anymore.
It's a huge deal.
It's a really, really big deal. He's going to turn 31 during this next season, and he says it's time for him to just walk away.
Wow.
At the top of his game.
Yeah.
And I told you back in October about an employee of Google who saw that Google.com was actually being offered for sale. Remember, he found a little loophole where Google had accidentally allowed Google.com to lapse, and he bought it for $12. He owned it for about 1 minute because, as I mentioned, he's an employee of Google. He immediately told his employees what was going on. So now we found out what Google paid him to get it back.
Oh, man.
Now, we know this is worth probably millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, but he said, look, I want to just give it back to you. And Google said, we want to give you $6,006.13, which, if you look at it numerically, it kind of spells Google. Google then found out that this employee, a man's name is Sanmay Ved, was going to give that money to charity, so they doubled it and made it $12,026, which he donated all to charity.
Wow.
Nice story.
So nobody had a real big payday here,
Right,
except for the fact that Google saved their butts by keeping it in the family.
Just nice to know there's an honest man out there who did not immediately go out and hire an attorney and, try to, right?
I can't say I would have done what he did.
Peter, when we're looking for an honest man. We
pretty far down that list.
Yeah, right. You're not the first person that pops into our head. Right, okay. Yes, indeed, I got to tell you, well, it was an eventful day yesterday, to say the least. If you would like an odd out-of-body experience, try sitting on the couch on a Sunday morning, watching the Sunday morning talk shows, when suddenly Chuck Todd and later George Stephanopoulos ask Bernie Sanders, the leading Democratic candidate, or if not the one of the two leading Democratic candidates for president, asks him what he thinks about your book. And I almost fell off the couch. Bernie asked first by Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, and then George Stephanopoulos about my book, which actually doesn't come out until tomorrow, official publication date. We've been telling you about it, Buyer's Remorse, How Obama Let Progressives Down. But first, here is what it sounded like. First, Chuck Todd saying to and the reason they're asking Bernie about it is because on the back of the book, the very first blurb is by Bernie Sanders, and then also a blurb by Keith Ellison, and then a blurb by Robert Reich, former labor secretary under Bill Clinton. And then on the front of the book at the very top, on the front cover at the very top, just a little an elliptical phrase from Bernie's blurb, which says, quote, Bill Press makes the case, ... read this book. Chuck Todd saying, what the hell's all that all about?
Chuck, what it has me saying is what I believe, in that the next president must be extremely aggressive in bringing more people into the political process. I think Barack Obama has done a fantastic job.
In other words, Bernie is saying what we need is a political revolution. You've heard him say that 1,000 times. And so Chuck follows up.
So you think Bill Press is wrong? You don't believe he's let down progressives?
No, I think President Obama has done a fantastic job. The economy today is infinitely better than it was 7 years ago. But what we have got to do is to involve people in the political process in a way that we have not done.
And then Senator Sanders goes on to This Week with George Stephanopoulos, and George gets into the same thing.
I wrote a blurb, 3 lines of what the blurb said, if you have it in front of you, is that the next president has got to be very active in bringing people into the political process. Democracy is not about 63% of the people not voting, which was the case in the last election.
Thank you, Senator Sanders, for the blurb. So just to set the record straight, here is the blurb, Bernie Sanders, word for word. And you will notice he doesn't say, I agree with everything in Bill Press's book. He's not even as critical, maybe, of President Obama as I am. He's made it clear in the past that he's, like a big supporter of President Obama. But there are some things where Bernie Sanders, remember, he did almost a filibuster on the floor about the budget deal at one time, which in opposition to President Obama. So they've had their differences, but overall, Bernie Sanders, he supports him. This is the point that he makes again. Okay, so here's the blurb, word for word. Quote, Bill Press makes the case why, long after taking the oath of office, the next president of the United States must keep rallying the people who elected him or her on behalf of progressive causes. That is the only way real change will happen. Read this book, Senator Bernie Sanders. Again, we need that political revolution. That's the point that Senator Sanders makes, and he's absolutely right. So just to set the record straight, because from the title, Buyer's Remorse, you might think this is just dumping all over President Obama, and it's not. Look, I have certain bias here, but I think the book is pretty well balanced. And I made the point right up front that when I say buyer's remorse, I don't mean buyer's remorse in the sense that, damn, I'm sorry I bought this car, this piece of junk. No, it's buyer's remorse in the sense of, okay, still glad I bought this car, but it really hasn't performed as well as I was hoping that it would. That kind of buyer's remorse. And I think and I lay out right in the very first introduction to the book all the great things that President Obama has done. He brought us closer to universal health care than we've ever been. He certainly brought the economy back, saved the auto industry, the Iran nuclear deal, opening up with Cuba, and go down. You're going to get leading the charge on gay rights and on climate change. But there are also ways that, to be honest, that the president, and we have to be honest, I think the president has disappointed us in certain areas. He didn't take any action at all where we were hoping. In the first 2 years, he did nothing at all about guns, and then very little since. In the first 4 years, he did nothing at all about immigration reform and has been the deporter-in-chief since. He did nothing about the Employee Free Choice Act, which was a big priority of labor unions, and he promised to do something about it. Not a word. 7 years now, nothing. There are areas where the president, I believe, disappointed us progressives by settling for too much, and I would put Obamacare in that category. And as Bernie Sanders talks, it's not single payer. That's the best way. That's the way to go. We don't even have a public plan option. Instead, we are still at the mercy of the insurance companies who can raise rates anytime, and the pharmaceutical companies who can raise the price of prescription drugs anytime. That's one area there. And there are areas where, the third area where I think the president has let us down is in some areas he has just continued the policies of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. And in two particular areas. One, with drones. We don't torture anymore. Instead, we just send these killer drones out to kill people without ever bringing them to trial, give them a chance to make a case or give us the responsibility of making the case against them. I mean, over 10 times more drone strikes, killer drone strikes, killing a lot of civilians under President Obama than under George W. Bush. And the second way I think he's disappointed us in the national security area is this wholesale spying on the part of NSA of our emails and our phone calls, and President Obama totally supports it. If George W. Bush were doing that, we would be raising holy hell as progressives. If George W. Bush were sending out these killer drones, we'd be raising holy hell as progressives. I think we have the responsibility to be honest with ourselves that if a Democrat is doing it, then we've got to be critical of that as well. So overall, just saying, yeah, he's done a lot of great things. In many ways, the president's let us down. And then the main message is the one that Bernie says, is that we progressives have to be vigilant, and we have to be as pushy and as aggressive as we can to make sure that the next president takes the progressive agenda, rallies the American people behind it, and runs full bore with it. Whether it's Hillary or Bernie, we need a president who's going to be a proud progressive all the way from day one. That's the message. Bernie knows it. 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it. Tell me, did I go too far, or is it important to make that point? Buyer's Remorse is a book. Bernie's talking about it, and so are we. 866-55-PRESS. Officially out tomorrow, but cat out of the bag over the weekend.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
on opening body bags after Typhoon Haiyan. I can only imagine it like unearthing a scab. Zipper breaks open one by one. Mothers trying to dig through themselves an umbilical cord to lend life to a limp ghost. There is not enough relief here to hide the scent of what this child used to be. The coconut trees are not high enough to see over the inside out that was made here. Bags do not have the honor of being called burial plots. Churches ain't supposed to be mausoleums. Tacloban was morphed into ground zero. And I watch this while it snows in Madison, Wisconsin, a place where it's easier to live as a rodent than it is to be a colored person. This place drowns my people in a different way. I inhabit both places like jigsaw corpse trying to find itself whole. These brown boys in Tacloban aren't my cousins, but I want to carry them to safety. These brown girls in Tacloban aren't my daughters, but I want to tell them they're still growing after this choking, but I'm still an ocean away, a language farther from root. A skin tone lighter than the sand, born there, raised here, home nowhere. To watch this storm is a sorry excuse for mourning. It is to need the sun desperately. It is to realize that your body is in one country while your grief is in another. To look at your house, walk to a river, and come back to no house is to be Filipino. To look at your motherland hurting from a TV screen is to be Filipino American. To watch my islands through the blue eyes of Anderson Cooper is the most American I have ever felt, but I still cry for them. And I still pray for them because God tried to make them Atlantis before they were ready to be a myth just yet, because rebuilding is the Filipinos' most intrinsic muscle memory, but most painful trauma, because relief is just a word whose Tagalog translation I don't even know, because this poem is all I can give for my country, bleeding in salt water. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord keeps trying to drown us. Hallowed be thy bodies. Thy kingdom come down in waves and winds on earth as it is destroyed. Take us this day our daily rations and forgive those who have tried to kill us as we forgive those who have tried to kill us. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us whose skin has always meant sin now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go, 27 minutes after the hour, and needless to say, you can get your signed copy of the book if you go to our website at BillPressShow.com. Just tell us how you want it signed, and we will get it out to you right away. Ray Rogers is on the book detail. Again, on the website, BillPressShow.com, you'll see the link there. Follow the link. Get your signed copy, even before it goes on sale officially tomorrow. Paul is calling from out in Bergen County, New Jersey. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Bill. How you doing?
All right, good. What's up?
Good. I plan to read your book, but it's one thing I kind of want to put sort of in perspective. That Barack Obama, like George Washington, is the first. He's the first African-American president, and he has to tread lightly. Because the people have to remember that even on the night he was inaugurated, Republicans were having that meeting at the caucus room stating that they're not going to help him on anything. So I think progressives have to understand that this man had to tread lightly. And all those accomplishments that you did mention just a couple minutes ago, he got those through basically without Republican help. And I understand that we have expectations, but you got to remember he was up against the Black Caucus. He was up against the Republicans, progressives, people.
Hey, Paul, I just got to jump in for time. I make every one of those points, every single one of those points in the book. So read the book, you'll find out.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Across from me at the kitchen table, my mother smiles over red wine that she drinks out of a measuring glass. She says she doesn't deprive herself, but I've learned to find nuance in every movement of her fork, in every crinkle in her brow as she offers me the uneaten pieces on her plate. I've realized she only eats dinner when I suggest it. I wonder what she does when I'm not there to do so. Maybe this is why my house feels bigger each time I return. It's proportional. As she shrinks, the space around her seems increasingly vast. She wanes while my father waxes. His stomach has grown round with wine, late nights, oysters, poetry, a new girlfriend who was overweight as a teenager, but my dad reports now she's crazy about fruit. It was the same with his parents. As my grandmother became frail and angular, her husband swelled to red, round cheeks, rotund stomach, and I wonder if my lineage is one of women shrinking, making space for the entrance of men into their lives, not knowing how to fill it back up once they leave. I have been taught accommodation. My brother never thinks before he speaks. I have been taught to filter. How can anyone have a relationship to food, he asks, laughing, as I eat the black bean soup I chose for its lack of carbs. I want to say we come from difference, Jonas. You have been taught to grow out. I have been taught to grow in. You learn from our father how to emit, how to produce, to roll each thought off your tongue with confidence. You used to lose your voice every other week from shouting so much. I learned to absorb. I took lessons from our mother in creating space around myself. I learned to read the knots in her forehead while the guys went out for oysters. And I never meant to replicate her, but spend enough time sitting across from someone and you pick up their habits. That's why women in my family have been shrinking for decades. We all learned it from each other, the way each generation taught the next how to knit, weaving silence in between the threads, which I can still feel as I walk through this ever-growing house. Skin itching, picking up all the habits my mother has unwittingly dropped, like bits of crumpled paper from her pocket on her countless trips, from bedroom to kitchen to bedroom again. Nights I hear her creep down to eat plain yogurt in the dark, a fugitive stealing calories to which she does not feel entitled. Deciding how many bites is too many, how much space she deserves to occupy. Watching the struggle, I either mimic or hate her, and I don't want to do either anymore, but the burden of this house has followed me across the country. I asked 5 questions in genetics class today, and all of them started with the word sorry. I don't know the capstone requirements. I don't know the capstone requirements for the sociology major because I spent the whole meeting deciding whether or not I could have another piece of pizza. A circular obsession I never wanted, but inheritance is accidental. Still staring at me with wine-soaked lips from across the kitchen table.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Help keep all the presidential candidates straight with your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, you make it 33 minutes after the hour. Here we are. It is The Bill Press Show. Yes, indeed. Coming to you live from Our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., with all eyes on Iowa. We're brought to you today by AFSCME. The good men and women of AFSCME making up under President Lee Saunders the largest public employee and healthcare workers union in the entire country. They're making America happen over at AFSCME. Check it out at afscme.org, AFSCME.org. And we're taking a look at particularly the situation in Iowa. First votes cast in this 2016 primary. As we know, it's a caucus state, which means probably if they have really good think about this, if they have really good turnout, it'll be maybe, they're saying 250,000 people turning out. Okay, and 250,000 people basically determining, or at least having a lot of say in who's going to end up being the nominees of the Republican and the Democratic Party. Someday we'll come to our senses and stop these stupid Iowa caucuses. They don't deserve to be, number one. They don't deserve to have this much importance. I'm sorry. I have a lot of friends in Iowa, but I'm sorry. Don't take it personally. It just doesn't reflect the country.
When you look at the implications, especially on the Republican side this time around, right? If Donald Trump ends up winning Iowa,
as Ted Cruz says, he could be unstoppable.
He could be unstoppable. I mean, that could be it.
Right.
That really could be it.
And Iowans have a tendency and an inclination to upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
That's why Hillary Clinton's having so much trouble, because they don't like to be told this is what you've got to do.
Yeah.
That this is the candidate you got to support. But I think, look, it's just like, whistling Dixie sometimes. But on campaign finance reform, I think they just ought to do away with all money in politics and have publicly financed campaigns. And someday we'll get there. On the primaries, I think there ought to be 4 regional primaries. And that way you do reflect more what the United States is all about, and put all the northeastern states together, the southeastern states, southwestern states, and the northwestern states. Boom, have a regional primary. It would much more reflect what Americans are all about, and really test the candidates instead of this idea that Iowa is always first. Why? But for today, it ain't going to change today. Today, we're in it. So let's take a look at it, right? In Iowa, it's a very, very close race, actually, on both sides, especially on the Democratic side. The very latest poll, the last one we'll see, shows Donald Trump at 28, Ted Cruz at 23. That's pretty close. And again, it all depends on turnout. That's the key factor. Turnout. Among the Republicans, Marco Rubio, and his goal is to come in third in Iowa, have a strong third showing.
Hey, aim for the top, man.
That's right. Yeah.
Shoot for the stars, and maybe you'll end up in third.
Go for the bronze.
Yeah, right.
He's showing with 15%, and which is respectable if he holds that. And all the others are kind of also rans. On the Democratic side, it is really, really neck and neck. Hillary Clinton with a slight edge, but still within the margin of error, 3 points, 45 to 42 up over Bernie Sanders. And again, the key there is turnout. Bernie Sanders has said everywhere he went yesterday, he said, look, if there's a big turnout, we win. If there's not, Hillary wins. That's got to motivate his supporters to get out there. Meanwhile, the Hillary and Bernie were going back and forth again about health care. Hillary, again, making the point that Bernie Sanders wants to totally dismantle Obamacare and start from scratch.
We're at 90% coverage. I think, in fact, I know we can get to 100%. Senator Sanders has a different view, not a different goal. We have the same goal. We want to get to universal coverage. But he wants to start all over again. He wants to have another, I think, contentious debate.
By the way, we are not at 90% coverage, and we will never get to 100% coverage under Obamacare. Never. I think President Obama would admit that. Hillary Clinton is simply wrong about that, and I think wrong again about what Bernie Sanders wants to do.
We are not going back to do this over again. This has been really hard. We need to protect it, preserve it, and make it better.
Yeah. Okay. No, we can make it better. I mean, if you make it better, in a sense, you've got to go back and redebate it again. And that's all Bernie is saying. Let's start with Obamacare. Don't dismantle it, but start with We start with Obamacare, which Bernie Sanders helped write, and then move into single-payer health care like most other civilized nations have done. When he's accused of wanting to dismantle health care, Bernie Sanders, oh, please.
Dismantle health care. I've spent my life fighting for universal health care for every man, woman, and child.
Yeah, right. And he has. The last 40 years, he's been the leading proponent of single-payer health care. He knows this issue better than anybody else. And Bernie does, again, make the point. The key for in Iowa, for him, but the key nationwide for Democrats is somebody who can excite the masses to come out and vote. That's the only way to win.
Democrats win elections when large numbers of people come out and vote. That's what Obama did in 2008. That's what we can do right now. Republicans win elections when people are demoralized and voter turnout is low.
That has proven true so many times. And I got to tell you, that's the thing we always feared when I was Democratic chair of California. And that's why we put so much effort into voter registration drives and GOTV, get out the vote drives. Because we knew, always knew, high turnout, Democrats win. Low turnout, Republicans win. It is incontestable. And what Bernie is saying is not only do we need somebody who can excite the Democrats to come out and vote the way Barack Obama did in 2008, we need that now in this primary. We need that in November in the general election. And to come full circle, back full circle, that's what he is saying, and nobody else is saying this. That's what he is saying we need when the new president is elected. I want to come back to the blurb. That's what he said in this blurb. The next president of the United States must keep rallying the people who elected him or her on behalf of progressive causes. We progressives cannot just sit back, elect somebody, and then say, okay, we've done our job. Now it's up to him or her. And that's exactly the point that Bernie is making. By the way, all of that, of course. So, we'll be talking about tomorrow how it shakes down. But the biggest and the most important political news of the day, how could we miss this, Peter, is that she's back. She's going to do it. Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney.
Dude.
Yes, she has announced she is. And we knew we hadn't seen the end of Liz Cheney.
No. I mean, we may never see the end.
She's
of
come
Liz
back
Cheney.
to Washington and Virginia. She hangs out here. But she's pretending again to be a resident of Wyoming. And she's running for the open House seat in Wyoming, which will probably go to a Republican. And this one, who knows, she might even win. But yeah, again, with no credentials.
She did so well last time she ran for public office.
No credentials other than having a minor job at the State Department. And, of course, our number one credential is her last name is Cheney in Wyoming. And she's running in Wyoming. So
here we are in 2016. Man. We've got a Bush on the national ballot. We've got a Cheney on the trying to make it to public office.
And we have a Clinton.
Any Rumsfeld? We got a Clinton out there. Any Rumsfelds out there want to run for office? Or,
oh, man.
Kissinger's?
Yeah, Back to the Future.
Come on.
There we go. All right, Elias Isquith, standing by from Salon Magazine. We'll get his take on the news of the day. And yours as we move along, 866-55-PRESS. Toll-free number. Join us anytime.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
So you're drowning in student debt, and it looks like there's no way out. Have you considered bankruptcy? Of course not. It's a dirty word, and everything you've heard says students can't file anyway. It didn't start that way. Bankruptcy laws were enacted in the 19th century to give people a fresh start. But not all debt is created equal. Take this, for example. We have you, your buddy Carlos, and your grandma Lucy. Carlos got laid off. His credit card debt was too much to handle, so he filed for bankruptcy. It will totally screw his credit, but at least he can start fresh, and after 10 years, his credit report should be fine. Grandma Lucy's home lost half its value. Now her mortgage isn't worth paying back. She says F it and decides to file for bankruptcy too. Then there's you. You didn't land that dream job, you're struggling to make ends meet, but the interest just keeps piling up. With a broken heart, you've written off the possibility of buying a home, having kids, and getting married because, hello, who wants to deal with your crazy baggage? But in reality, you want those things, and your education was supposed to get you there. Now you need a fresh start, just what bankruptcy was intended for. You try to file, like Carlos and Grandma Lucy, and that's when you realize it's not as easy for you as it was for them. In the 70s, Congress worried that students were using bankruptcy to abuse loan programs. That wasn't quite true. Still, over the years, Congress gradually stripped student debtors of their options. The Bankruptcy Reform Act of 1978 was even called discriminatory toward students by the chairman of the subcommittee. Student debt was singled out and lumped with criminal debts. Today, if student debtors try filing for bankruptcy anyway, they'll need to prove their debt imposes an undue hardship. But who's to say what qualifies as an undue hardship? Even some judges have said they don't get it. This lack of clarity in the law could work in your favor. A Harvard researcher discovered in 2012 that few students actually try to discharge their loans through bankruptcy. Of the students who filed for bankruptcy to settle other debts, only 0.1% try the same tactic on their school debt. The craziest part? Just under half of them got their debts fully or partially discharged. In other words, you can file for bankruptcy on your student loans. Depending on your situation, it might just be a matter of trying. At least there's that.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV, this is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 14 minutes before the hour, the big day finally here in Iowa. But is it such a big day after all, or should it get all the attention that it does? Joining us from Salon Magazine, salon.com, Elias Isquith, our Monday regular here on the Bill Press Show. Elias, good Monday to you again.
Hey, good Monday to you. How you doing?
I love one of your opening lines here. The start is almost finished. We can all breathe a sigh of relief at that. But you also say the big day isn't as important as we've been told. Why? We know the problems with Iowa. Why do we still play this game every 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, the media often gets accused of kind of having a self-fulfilling prophecy when it comes to its coverage of politics. I think that this is maybe the ultimate case of that because, you know, what I was trying to say in the piece is that Iowa does matter because the media has decided it matters. But beyond that, it's kind of hard to see it as really such a definitive statement of voters' intent, as I'm sure your listeners know and you guys talk about all the time. Just not a representative group of people. No offense to them, but
well, and they're not always right. I mean, no. President Rick Santorum, right? President Mike Huckabee,
yeah,
President
exactly.
Michelle Bachmann. I don't know.
Yeah, and I felt like especially this cycle because, these elections start sooner and sooner. We start talking about 2016 and, the minute 2012 is over. That because of that, which is driven by, people need clicks and people want to read political news, and so you got to keep feeding the beast. But, because of that, there's this desire to pump up Iowa. It's going to give us all these big lessons, and I'm just not sure it's really going to tell us a ton that we haven't known for a while.
Well, yeah. I mentioned this a little earlier. I think the big lesson it gives us that we ought to change the primary system so that Iowa and New Hampshire don't dominate.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
But I've been saying that for a long time. When I was a member of the DNC back in the days when I was Democratic State Chair of California, I actually helped lead a movement in that direction, and we actually won a vote of the DNC Rules Committee. This was during the Clinton years, and Harold Ickes and other big from the Clinton White House came in and stomped all over us.
Wow.
and reversed the vote.
That's a little surprising considering as we're seeing, the Clintons aren't exactly like Iowa's favorite people.
No, exactly right. So what is your read on the thing? I mean, the people of Iowa, they do seem to be to defy the established wisdom, I guess. Right? They always try to do that. Right? Don't tell us who we ought to vote for. Right?
Right.
So,
I think
given that, what happens this time?
I think that it's, so what I'm expecting is that I think that Secretary Clinton's going to win, but I think it's going to be very close.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's going to be close enough that the Sanders camp will very reasonably say that, this is a race. Here we go. Let's forward.
Right. That's right. In a sense, I was just going to say, in a sense, and I hope Bernie wins just to keep it interesting. And plus, I like Bernie, but if he doesn't, if he comes, he's going to come close, right? If he comes, and when he does, and if he does, that's astounding that Bernie Sanders, right, could give Clinton a run for her money in Iowa, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a testament to the fact that, if Secretary Clinton ends up getting the nomination, she's going to have to, I think, return to what she was doing in the very beginning of her campaign, which was she was putting forward policy ideas that were not quite as ambitious, certainly as Secretary Sanders, but they were a little more, they had a more verve than what we've seen from her in a while.
Yeah.
And I think that the Sanders campaign is showing that Democratic voters really want ideas to get excited about.
Yeah, they want a progressive agenda, I think. And you go back to her speech there on Roosevelt Island, wasn't it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That could have been written by Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was expecting her campaign to sort of stay on that note for a lot longer than it has, I got to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, so you're calling Clinton and Bernie a close second on the Republican side. Is it really going to be Donald Trump, do you think?
I think so, but I think it's going to be much more of a nail-biter than people are expecting, mainly because we've just seen no indication that he's really put in the money and the time into a ground game, which is just so vital in Iowa. So considering that Cruz has done his best to kind of endear himself to the people who are the best on the ground, which tends to be the evangelical community, I'm expecting it to be a lot closer. And I think that, people are going to start wondering, once the media phase of this sort of never ends but dies down, can Trump do the sort of grunt work? And I think that he'll be able to if voters are excited enough about what he's selling still, and there seems to be no indication that they're losing their interest. But I think it's going to be close.
I'm with you on that. I'm just not sure with all the bluster, right, that Trump has the ground organization. It's interesting just watching the networks. Anytime they want to show people on the phones, getting people out to vote, right? I mean, like I was watching last night, they went to the Cruz headquarters. And those evangelicals, they're really on it, right? Or they went to the Marco Rubio headquarters, right? All these young people there. I haven't seen a Trump headquarters where there are people who are actually mobilizing to get people out to the polls. And it doesn't just, I know from my own political experience, it doesn't just happen, right? That you can give good speeches and big rallies and then people will turn out.
That's not how it's supposed to work, certainly. I mean, so much of the Trump campaign has just not followed the rules. that I think
That's true.
that's part of what makes this interesting. I guess we'll see. Can you have this just completely media-focused and dominated campaign, and will it work? Are Republicans voters so mad and so willing to do something that goes against what they've always done, that they're willing to kind of go with a reality show as their presidential candidate?
Well, that's the test. And you know what? A week from today, we'll be talking about what's likely to happen the next day in New Hampshire.
Yeah, we have a lot of...
So there we go. So far, it's just been the preliminary. Now we're into the main event. Exactly.
Here we go, man.
All right, Elias, great to join you as always. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Salon.com is where you find Elias Isquith keeping his eye on 2016.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
For my 6th birthday, my grandpa gave me a Rubik's Cube. I'll always be able to remember its edges, hold it in my hands, heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I remember him telling me about it. How Rubik's Cube has 43 quintillion, 252 quadrillion, 3 trillion, 274 billion, 489,856,000 possibilities. He told me it can be really confusing sometimes. But to look at the center squares as a reminder of what color each side should be. Shift. We're celebrating his 50th wedding anniversary. He and Grandma are dancing a dance that only fragile legs and wrinkled hands know how to. That type of happiness took him 70 years to earn. The white side of the cube is solved. Shift. He tells me about how he met Grandma. His college friends had a sunset picnic. She was there, as beautiful as an unsolved puzzle. She was a red-headed scramble on an orange tile sky. Shift. The walls of the hospital are blue. The nurses explain that his memories had become jumbled. Strangers in family portraits, pictures with mismatched faces. Alzheimer's has made his mind into a Rubik's Cube. Shift. He's a highway patrolman. His car is white. No, it's blue. He worked there for 30 years. Some nights he still does. Time is a complicated algorithm. Shift. The pills he holds are yellow and red and green. The weight of their color causes his hand to drop. I try to shift his tiles back into place, but people don't have center squares. His mind is a hospital bed divided by 0. Shift. My sister's wedding is white, but he doesn't know why. Shift. World War II is every color. The South Pacific is blue. The islands are green. There is so much red. Shift. Grandpa, table, cube, name, scramble, California, guitar, grapefruit highway, wedding bell, war, stick shift rifles, South Pacific mirrors, shift. The temperature of his hands is blue. Death is colorless. I will always remember his edges. Hold him in my hands. Heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I was unable to attend his funeral. I never found out the algorithm to solve him. A Rubik's Cube has over 43 quintillion possibilities. A casket only has one.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, and we'll be joining Kyle Cheney from Politico at the top of the next hour. Peter?
Big endorsement for Bernie Sanders. He got one late last week from Tommy Chong.
Tommy Chong.
Cheech and Chong.
Oh,
yes,
yes,
indeed.
Wonder why he likes Bernie.
Yeah, well, he said he has weathered many storms and is totally ready to be the commander-in-chief or commander-in-Kush, as I like to say. So, yeah, he says that the decriminalization of marijuana is a big reason why he wants to vote for Bernie Sanders.
So, you know what? All those senators are out there, right, campaigning for Hillary. No.
Bernie's got Tommy Chong.
Bernie's got Tommy Chong, right. So,
yeah.
I saw also Raul Grijalva and Keith Ellison. The two leaders of the Progressive Caucus are in Iowa campaigning. But Bill and Chelsea were there with Hillary. So.
Heavy hitters this week.
Everybody turning out in Iowa. We'll be right back. Hour number 2.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, guys, I want to take the last part of the day to change our focus and talk a little bit about water. There's rivers, there's lakes, there's huge oceans. You get thirsty, you just go and you get some water, right? We rely on rain for our water. We even rely on snow. But what if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. I want you to tell your parents, your friends, your neighbors, how important it is to save water. It's up to you guys to save the planet. All right? What if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. It's up to you guys to save the planet.
Hi, I'm Mark LaFleur, and I produced the short film you just watched called Aquaforce. California is experiencing one of the worst droughts it's ever had, and now, more than ever, it's important for everyone to do their part to help conserve water. The reason I made this film is because I wanted to make something fun and informative that would get people talking about the California drought. Obviously, this is an important issue because we have a limited amount of clean drinking water. I think it was very important to let people know, especially young people, that this is an important resource, maybe our most important resource, and it's something that we can't take for granted and we certainly can't waste. I really wanted this to be something that children would respond to. The kind of thing that any kid anywhere in the world, no matter what language they speak, could understand the story and be entertained by it and leave it knowing that this is something important, that if they didn't already know about this, that it's now going to be a part of the way that they think about water, the way that they live life, and that it's something that they'll share with their friends. The fact that they watch this video once or twice and they immediately understand that water is important, that's it. That was the whole point of this thing, to get it into the conversation, to make it something that kids are thinking about, talking about, that they're aware of, and that they know is important. This project was self-funded, so we relied on the support of our community to make it happen. It was pretty amazing to just have our neighbors, our friends, and our coworkers come together and volunteer their time and their homes and their kids to make this thing happen. Thanks for checking out the video. Keep the Aquaforce going, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, no more rallies, no more ads, no more talk. Let's get down to voting. Caucus Day in Iowa. Hello, everybody. Monday, February 1. How about it? Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us, the Bill Press Show. Booming out to you live from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and we're here with you wherever you are in this great land of ours, on the radio, on your local progressive talk radio station, of course, coast to coast. Thanks for joining us in Radioland, or if maybe you're listening to one of those two great radio apps, iHeartRadio or TuneIn. We're also here with you, of course, on Free Speech TV. Hello, hello. You're looking good on TV this morning as well, coast to coast, nationwide. Thank you for joining us. All the focus on Iowa, and that's where most of our focus is today. And the latest poll, Donald Trump with a slight lead, 5 points over Ted Cruz, and Hillary Clinton with an even slimmer lead over Bernie Sanders, basically neck and neck on the Democratic side. We'll take a look at it with Kyle Cheney from Politico a little bit later, with Jenna Johnson from the Washington Post. Here in studio today, our team, landlocked, not in Iowa, Peter Ogburn, Jamie Benson. Hello.
Here we
hello.
go. Here we go.
But we will be in New Hampshire next week.
Yes, indeed.
Yep. Ray Rogers is here to take your calls on any topic at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Volding, our videographer, on the job as well. We know what happened with the big debate Thursday night. They turned out they had 12 million some people watching. But that is, without Donald Trump, the second smallest crowd of any of the debates so far.
Yeah.
So he did have an impact.
I think you could absolutely say that Donald Trump certainly made his point.
Right. The Fox News didn't lose their shirt over it, but certainly didn't get the crowd that it would have if Trump had been there. Meanwhile, so Stephen Colbert had the idea, well, if you don't have Donald Trump, then who will Donald Trump debate? Well, maybe Donald Trump could debate Donald Trump.
Let's start with you. Your chief Republican rival, Ted Cruz, has attacked you for skipping tonight's Fox News debate. Do you believe your absence will improve Cruz's chances?
I don't think Ted Cruz has a great chance, to be honest with you. He's a nasty guy. Nobody likes him. Nobody in Congress likes him. Nobody likes him anywhere once they get to know him.
There you go.
Okay, so no one likes Ted Cruz. Mr. Trump, a rebuttal.
I really do. I'd like Ted Cruz a lot.
Okay.
There it is. All right, you got it. You got it both from Donald Trump. Yep.
You could go on and on with that. Trump has talked out of both sides of his mouth for a long time.
Sure could. Again, Cal Cheney from Politico joined us here at the top of the hour with Jenna Johnson from the Washington Post. And next hour, Jane Mayer from the New Yorker on her new book, Dark Money. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Here's an interesting story from Google. According to a story in The Guardian, Google is working on a new project codenamed Skybender. You know what Skybender is? They are building a spaceport in New Mexico to build and test solar-powered drones that will emit radio transmissions and 5G wireless technology and wireless fidelity for people to get internet from a drone beamed down from space.
So, like, to cover areas where there's no coverage?
To cover areas where there's no coverage, and so you don't necessarily, like, if you want to have a service provider, right, you don't have to go with, your regular service provider. You can just get it from the sky from Google. However, they managed to, sell that and get that on the market. Project Skybender, we don't know how fast it's going to move or anything like that, but we will certainly keep an eye on that. You want to help out the people of Flint, Michigan? According to Michael Moore, he says, don't send them bottles of water, right? There's a big movement for people to send bottles of water to Michigan, and Michael Moore laid out the math. He said, essentially, if you want to give the citizens of Flint enough water to last them for like a couple of days, basically, it's going to take 20.4 million 16-ounce bottles per day, because if you just have to use clean water for all these different things. He said, instead of sending water, call for the removal and even arrest of Governor Rick Snyder. He says, don't focus your energy on sending water. Focus your energy on getting this governor out of office, something which has not happened yet. So,
I mean, he's called for his arrest and
Flint, Michigan, of course, Michael
conviction.
Moore's hometown. So he is tied to this story. And the Super Bowl is coming up in less than a week from yesterday, Super Bowl 50. And we already had a little bit of an oopsie at Levi's Stadium in San Francisco where the game will be played. They paint the end zones with the two teams, as you know, right? The Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers with their logo and their name, except they made a mistake at the end of last week. They painted both of the end zones with the name and the logo of the Denver Broncos. Whoops.
Just like the debate, Trump versus Trump. It's going to be Broncos versus Broncos.
Broncos versus Broncos. They have quickly fixed the mistake, and they now both have one says Panthers, one says Broncos. So it's been fixed.
All right, we thank you. Yes, indeed, all eyes on Iowa, and we jump out there. Kyle Cheney has been on the ground for Politico, political reporter for Politico, of course, joining us on our news line this morning. Hey, Kyle, it's early in Iowa. Thanks for getting up early for us.
Yeah, glad to do it, Bill. Good to be here.
All right. So what's your read there? Who have you been following, and what's your take about what we can expect tonight in the first votes cast in this 2016 primary?
Sure. Well, I've been largely keeping tabs on the Carson campaign. Obviously, the one side flying Carson. Now, maybe on his last fumes here, we'll see if he can pull
I was
off
going to
the
say,
surprise.
is there still a Carson campaign?
Believe it or not, I mean, we learned yesterday they raised $22 million in the fourth quarter, which beat everybody else, and so they can still haul in the money. But actually, we also learned that the money essentially stopped coming in the middle of November, in the middle of the quarter, when people realized that he wasn't up to snuff on foreign policy issues. So that was the sign of the fade, but he's still out there. He can pull off an upset.
Is he still holding events and getting people out?
Yeah, he's been basically spent the last couple of weeks focusing purely on religious conservatives. He's had this Trust in God tour, and he thinks that that's the key to his surprise comeback. Committed, devoted voters who will appreciate his religious devotion and is really focusing on that group.
I must tell you, I have not heard, until you mentioned him, I haven't heard anybody in all the coverage of Iowa mention Ben Carson's name for at least a week, right?
It's incredible, actually, how he's gone.
He's disappeared.
Obscurity.
Yeah.
This is. I mean, almost everybody has, in a sense. We hear Trump and Cruz, and with a bit of Rubio, sort of trying to overtake Cruz. And that's what the coverage has all been about, because those are the moving parts right now.
Right. And again, from this distance, but just people that like you that I follow and read and watch and listen to, the one that seems to have really organized the evangelicals is Ted Cruz. We know he's done it. Does Donald Trump have that kind of a ground organization?
That's the eternal mystery here. I mean, they're confident they do. They spend a lot on sort of data and targeting these kind of voters, and specifically on evangelical voters. I mean, Trump has definitely modified his rhetoric in the last few days, specifically to go after evangelical votes, talking more about his own faith and bringing the Bible that his mother inscribed for him out on the campaign trail, and I think he's not necessarily a natural fit for that community, but they seem to appreciate his directness, and so he's managed to capture some portion of that vote.
But does Trump have campaign headquarters? Does he have volunteers in there making calls, right? Does he have that kind of a ground organization? Yes, he does, huh?
But he does. He absolutely has a ground game. I think that's been the mystery for him so far. Is it sophisticated enough to compete in like a modern campaign setting with someone like Cruz, who very clearly has invested so much in this operation, and not just in Iowa but beyond. I think Cruz, people tend to agree, has the most sophisticated operation beyond Iowa too, which could be a factor down the road if this thing stays closed. Trump, they've made a big game, big show of we've invested this amount in data and in getting this sort of targeted approach to a ground game, but we haven't seen it in action.
Now, I'm going to put you on the line here. And there's nothing at stake. I mean, your job is not at stake, your salary or nothing. But having been on the ground, and I know I want to get to, you're about to leave there to go to New Hampshire. What's your gut tell you? Who's going to win on the Republican and Democratic side?
I mean, I think this is Trump's day. The one wild card. I mean, and I think the Clinton-Sanders fight. Forget it. If that you can flip a coin at this point. The wild card is. Do we get this surge in new voters?
Right.
And if so, they may not have shown up in any of the polls. And you could have Trump and Sanders winning by a landslide if you, if you get this turnout that hasn't been projected yet. There's also this potential for a storm in the evening, which shouldn't really hit till after the voting. But if it spooks some people and they stay at home, who knows what that does to turnout? It's such a small universe of voters that these little things can make a big difference.
Okay. Now, as any author will tell you, any publicity is good publicity, all right? And months ago, when I asked Senator Sanders if he'd be willing to blurb a new book of mine, I think neither he nor I certainly realized that the book would come out the day after the Iowa primary. and would be a subject of the big talk shows on Sunday morning, the Sunday before.
You've underestimated your influence.
And the subject of an article on Politico written by one Kyle Cheney.
Oh, man.
Yeah. All right. So, is that just make me feel good, Kyle? Is everybody in Iowa talking about my book?
You've caused a stir, Bill. You have. This is I mean, what's so interesting about it is not, again, obviously sounds like it was not your intention when you got this quote for the book months ago, is that Hillary Clinton has spent weeks trying to drive a wedge between Bernie Sanders and President Obama, trying to prove that she's really the one who carries the mantle of the Obama White House.
Well, particularly in the last debate, she was right.
So she really hammered on that, and that the reason that's smart politics is, though Obama may not be that beloved nationally among Democrats, he's still a revered figure. I mean, his poll numbers are through the roof, and so in a Democratic primary, that may be significant. People, there may be some truth that progressives are a little bit disillusioned by what he hasn't been able to accomplish, but a lot of them attribute that to the obstructionism he faced from Republicans and don't necessarily hold it against him. So obviously, in the quote in your book, Senator Sanders is endorsing this premise about buyer's remorse. That's your title, right?
That's the title.
That liberals are and the left and progressives are just unhappy with Obama's performance and his ability to stand up, I guess, to his Republican opponents to accomplish his agenda.
But when you read the blurb, as you know, in Bernie's blurb, all he is saying is what he's been saying almost in every one of his political rallies is we need a political revolution, right, in this primary, but also a political revolution with the next president. The president's got to keep people involved and keep the pressure on to get things done and to push the progressive agenda. The timing we never anticipated it would be the issue that it is. But I thought
fortuitous. You got some buzz for your book, though. Definitely fortuitous.
Well, thanks to you and a couple of others too. All right, now you're heading off to New Hampshire. You're going to get there ahead of the crowd, I guess, Kyle, huh?
Yes, and hopefully ahead of whatever snowstorm hits on Tuesday, so that the candidates themselves are able to make it out there,
we talked about that possibility. It's a possibility, right, that everybody could be stranded in Iowa on Tuesday.
Right, and so for the people who are staying till the bitter end to watch the numbers come in, probably will get stuck there Tuesday, because this thing's supposed to dump a foot of snow across a big swath of Iowa. There's one segment I saw in the forecast that might be clear in the southeastern portion, so if you could drive out there and maybe get a flight out of the Quad Cities. But otherwise, you may get stuck for another day while the campaign's heating up in New Hampshire.
Oh man! First of all, that would be bad for the candidates, and also bad for the people of Iowa. I think at this point they're ready to say, get the hell out of here, right?
Like 24 more hours. We
don't want to see you again. 4 years from now, we'll see you. Okay, we'll be ready. But all right. Hey, well, Kyle, listen, we're going to be up in Manchester, so hopefully we can catch up with you up in New Hampshire next weekend. Okay.
It should be fun.
All right, and thanks for joining us today, Kyle Cheney from Politico.
You got it, Bill.
All right, you got it. Politico.com.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is the story of my grandfather. When I was 19 years old, his right hand was crushed in a printing press. He was supposed to lose the hand, but a young doctor saved it just in time for the war. This is the story of the war. My grandfather repaired tanks. Behind the front lines, away from the cameras, he would pull pieces of dead men from the machines and send the machines back out to the field. This is the story of the war a decade later. Back then, you didn't talk about depression. There was no such thing as PTSD when my uncle age 7, asked him who won the war, my grandfather said, nobody. This is the story of my grandfather, the machinist. I have a newspaper from 1981, a story about the Nobel Prize for Physics, a photograph of the winner, a Harvard man standing by his machines. This man is not my grandfather. Beneath the photo, my grandfather has written, I designed and built almost everything in this picture. They worked together for 10 years, but my grandmother says the physicist never even remembered his name. If you asked that Harvard man, there would be no story of my grandfather, just a pair of disembodied hands. This is the problem with stories. They have to leave something out. The editor cuts a line and someone's face fades. The editor says 200 words or less and suddenly a whole family goes missing. The spotlight isn't about the light, it's how it makes everything around it dark. My grandfather's face is erased from every story. The machines survive, but the man who made them doesn't. The machines make the photo, but their maker is out of frame. But we choose where to point the camera. We can choose how to tell the story. We can choose which clothing the hero wears. I could tell you this is a story about a soldier, or I could tell you this is a story about the blue-collar man, but really, this is just the story of my grandfather. I did not know him. I was born too late, but my family tells me his name. Alfred Franzosa. I know that name might only live in this moment, that there are other stories with greater stakes, but still, I will tell you his name. I will repair this old machine. I will let my grandfather live again because I could not know him while he was living. Once, when he was younger than I am now, his right hand was crushed by a printing press, crushed by other people's stories. When it healed, he began to build. He used his hands to build tanks and his hands to build cradles. His hands were the last thing to touch dead soldiers and the first to touch his newborn sons. He built a good family, and that family built me, and now I use my hands to build his story. The story is not a eulogy. A eulogy seals the casket. A eulogy lets no air out. This story is a resurrection. Jesus was not resurrected by God. He was brought back by the people who told his stories. It does not take a miracle to raise the dead, to leave behind the tombstone and take the name with you.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The only thing we can do is have the people finally rise up and say, we're not going to take it anymore, and make sure that our voice is going to be heard.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. We go back to Iowa with Janet Johnson from the Washington Post, who's been on the Trump trail in Iowa. Meanwhile,
what a beat, man.
Yeah, on the Democratic side, it's a real horse race. Hillary Clinton with a slight edge, 45-42 over Bernie Sanders. That's within the margin of error, of course. And yesterday, Secretary Clinton again making the point that we've got a good deal with Obamacare, and Bernie just wants to rip it up.
We're at 90% coverage. I think, in fact, I know we can get to 100%. Senator Sanders has a different view, not a different goal. We have the same goal. We want to get to universal coverage. But he wants to start all over again. He wants to have another, I think, contentious debate.
I'm sorry, Secretary Clinton, we will never get to 100% under Obamacare. That's the very nature of it. It is not single payer, not even close. And Senator Sanders says, "What? You're accusing me of wanting to of not being for universal health care?"
Dismantle health care. I've spent my life fighting for universal health care for every man, woman, and child.
So the two of them...
Health care. Fighting for health care.
The two of them back to back, and, they both have big operations there. They both, Hillary Clinton with a big head start and more money, maybe a bigger ground operation. Bernie Sanders with more enthusiasm. So it all depends, and Bernie has said this several times, it all depends on the turnout. That's the key. I'm sure we'll hear that too from Jenna Johnson about the Trump operation. Bernie says if there is a big turnout tonight, big turnout, he wins. If average turnout, Hillary Clinton wins. Back with Jenna Johnson from the Washington
Post. This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
On a Monday, February 1, The Bill Press Show, live from Washington, D.C., reaching out to you nationwide, coast to coast, on your local progressive talk radio station. Great to see you in Radio Land today. And reaching out to you also on, looking at you on Free Speech TV. We have our eyes on Iowa as we sit in our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today by our good friends at Amalgamated Bank. Yeah, a bank with progressive values. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but it's not, because for nearly a century, Amalgamated has been the first choice bank of progressive organizations and progressive individuals nationwide. Check them out yourself at amalgamatedbank.com. You know the way it works today in banking. You seldom walk into a bank. You can do all your banking online from anywhere in the country at Amalgamated Bank and be a proud progressive at the same time. Amalgamatedbank.com. Yes, all eyes on Iowa, where Jenna Johnson's been traveling across the state with Donald Trump, perhaps the most exciting of all the
certainly the most entertaining
campaigns. You never know what he's going to say next. And Jenna joins us from the Washington Post on our newsline this morning. Hi, Jenna. Happy Caucus Day, huh?
Hey, happy Caucus Day to you guys, too.
So it's finally here. And tell us about the latest 24 or 36 hours or whatever. How did Donald Trump wind it up?
Yeah, well, he was in New Hampshire on Friday. Most of the candidates have been here solidly
nonstop
for the whole week. But he took a break, went to New Hampshire, and then came back Saturday afternoon. And, of course, he arrived in very grand style. He landed his big private jet at an airport in Dubuque, Iowa, in the eastern part of the state. And a whole bunch of his supporters were waiting for him in the hangar. He swooped by in the plane and then circled it back around and landed and pulled the plane up as the theme song from Air Force One was playing.
Oh, my God.
So that was his arrival.
He does that, right?
So funny.
No, he does. And then, he comes right down the steps right into the crowd, right?
Yep. The door opens. People are chanting, "Make America Great." He comes down the stairs. After the rally, he let a bunch of local kids get on the plane and run around and check it out in very Willy Wonka fashion. So that was stop number one. He had 3 stops in eastern Iowa on Saturday. He had 2 rallies in western Iowa on Sunday. Today, most candidates are just buckling down. He has 2 more rallies. He's going to be in Waterloo and Cedar Rapids. Doing a bunch of TV this morning. And then tonight he'll be in downtown Des Moines for his big caucus party and to watch the returns coming in.
Wow. So, and meanwhile, does he have an operation out there getting people out to vote, or is he just sort of, hoping they'll do the right thing?
Yeah, he does. His Iowa operation has been a big secret. His staff here is not allowed to talk to the media. I know that when people get hired, there's a lot of paperwork that happens. Loyalty is very big to Donald Trump. And so trying to get any information out of the Iowa team about what they're doing has been very difficult. And so I think for a long time, a lot of people assumed that they just weren't doing anything. And we're hoping that this would just serendipitously come together. In the last few days before the caucuses, we've kind of seen this ground game whirl into action. When I'm at rallies, people I'm talking to say that they've received several phone calls from the campaign, a campaign volunteer walked them through how to find their caucus location. So they're doing a get out the vote effort. A lot of the people who are, a good number of the people who say that they're going to vote for Donald Trump are not typical caucus goers. A lot of people I talk to in audiences have never caucused before. This is their first time. So we'll wait and see what happens.
And just to help some of our viewers and listeners who may not have paid that much attention to Iowa before, and a lot of new voters listening to. The caucuses, this is unlike anything most of us are used to, right? You don't walk in, pick up a ballot, mark the ballot, drop it in the box, or push the button on the machine, and then turn around and walk out, right? These caucuses, this is a whole different operation, isn't it? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So unlike on a primary day where you have the whole day to get in there, vote, and get out.
Any time of day, right?
Yeah, exactly. For the caucuses, you have to be there at 7 p.m. You have to be in the line, headed into your precinct by 7 p.m. So that gives you a very limited window of time to vote. If you work nights, you have to get the night off. If you have kids, you have to get someone to watch your kids. It makes it much more difficult to get there. So you get in line by 7 p.m. You get into your caucus precinct. A lot of times there'll be some quick speeches. Someone who believes in each of the candidates will get up and try to do one last push to win people over. Democrats and Republicans caucus in different ways. For Republicans, you get a slip of paper and you write down the name of who you want, and those votes get tallied up, put into a system, and then at the end of the night, tallied up statewide.
But if they don't get, it doesn't work that if you don't, nobody wins on the first round or whatever, then you have to join somebody else's.
That's only the Democrats.
Oh,
That's
Democrats.
the way the Democrats do it. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
a big part of the Trump outreach has been telling people this is a secret ballot. You don't have to, unlike the Democrats where you have to stand in a corner. You put a name on a piece of paper and that's it. And you only have to pick one person. You don't have to come in with a second pick.
Yeah. So then, so it's a little easier on the Republican side, I'd say, right?
Yes.
But still, it all depends on turnout.
Yeah. And we're supposed to be getting, in the next 24 to 48 hours, a big snowstorm here in Iowa. I've been watching the weather reports, and it looks like it's not going to hit until Tuesday. Of course, when all of us reporters are trying to get to New Hampshire.
Yeah, of course, right.
But the weather can play a role in it, too.
Yeah. But, I mean, Iowans are a little more used to snow. Well, put it this way, can handle it a little better than those of us here in the nation's capital, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yes. I think they shook their heads at the big storm that hit D.C. not too long ago.
All right. So is it sort of taken for granted then? So you believe that Trump pulls it off tonight, huh?
I have given up predicting anything when it comes to Donald Trump. I've completely given up predicting anything. But I will say he's leading in the polls. There's a lot of enthusiasm at his rallies. And, he's kind of been a different candidate the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. He has this confident swagger about him.
Right.
He's calm, and so I think he thinks he's going to win it. We'll see what happens.
Seems to. All right. But if he does, right, and it looks that way, is it sort of also taken for granted that Ted Cruz is second, maybe a close second, and that Marco Rubio is the third place finisher?
I mean, that's what the polls are telling us right now. Cruz and Trump are neck and neck. I think that they are very close right now. And so the competition now is for that third place, which is so funny because usually it's the competition for the first place, but this is such an interesting year that you have a lot of candidates who are actively trying to get third place.
That third place is really, really important this year. Huh?
Yeah, and especially for whoever's going to be kind of that establishment candidate. Cruz and Trump have kind of been lumped together as, the kind of anti-establishment candidate. Who's going to be that person who comes out of Iowa and challenges them in the primaries to come? Rubio really wants to be that person. He's gotten a little bit more momentum here in Iowa. He's polling better, but Chris Christie's fighting for that.
Right.
Everyone wants that spot.
I know. And, of course, yesterday, the New York Times endorsed Hillary Clinton as the Democratic nominee and John Kasich as the Republican nominee. Have you seen Kasich in Iowa?
Not much.
Right.
Not much.
Yeah.
He has been really heavily focused on New Hampshire.
Mhm.
And so, New Hampshire's his place.
That's where he's hoping to make his mark. So, I think perhaps after Iowa, but certainly after New Hampshire, we're going to see fewer Republican candidates in the pack than we see today. But all eyes on Trump and Cruz tonight. All right, Jenna, enjoy, and then we'll catch up with you in New Hampshire.
All right. Hey, thanks for inviting me.
All right, thanks. Jenna Johnson, Washington Post, WashingtonPost.com.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It occurred to me tonight, for the first time, that the long-winged insect that over and over again rams its body into the wood of my front door might not know what he's doing. He might not have a plan. Maybe that's just how he flies, and that is where the door is. And I remember you. The last time I saw you, a few weeks before we would graduate from high school, and a few days before you let a bullet dissolve on your tongue, dancing in a warehouse rave, sweat-drenched and strobe light battered, thrashing your arms back and thrusting them forward. The floor could get so bright and loud, we all slowed down to be more careful, but you kept dancing full sprint tornado, and sometimes you'd spin full weight into a wall and just spread your arms against it and sway back and forth like a lover reunited. This long-winged insect is not trying to get into the house. It doesn't know there is a house. Can't imagine a life beyond that door. All it can see is the light. You and I were both 17 when you died. And ever since then, I have envied you. How you are remembered for towering, unclaimed potential instead of living to look regret in the face. You didn't have to come home 3 weeks later and explain to your little brother why you took too much medicine. Your addiction is remembered as a tragedy, not a betrayal. Your suicide attempt became a suicide, not an unpaid hospital bill. And only tonight did it occur to me that maybe that night when you let your teeth touch metal, you might not have known what you were doing. You might not have had a plan. Maybe you had hit that door so many times you couldn't imagine it might let you through. I'm still ashamed to admit it, but I have always secretly believed you did it for me, that you wanted to show me that there is a way out of all of this. Not so that I would follow you, but so I would understand that every day that I am alive is a day that I choose to be alive. And when the music stops, you still get to keep on dancing. And when the light is so bright it blinds, you can dance with your eyes closed. And if in that dark you come up against a wall, you keep your arms out wide and you dance with the wall.
It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
Hey, here we go at 13 minutes before the top of the hour. Jane Mayer from the New York Times and the New Yorker with her new book, Dark Money. At the top of the next hour, great book. I've been reading it, and it tells a whole story about dark money in American politics, mainly on the part of the Koch brothers, but you'll see there are a lot of other people involved as well. And speaking of books making news, yeah, To my surprise, yesterday, it was this book, Buyer's Remorse, that made news. Buyer's Remorse, How Obama Let Progressives Down. My new book, which actually officially launches tomorrow, but reporters in Iowa picked up a copy of it, and it became the talking point yesterday, as some of you may have noticed, on both Meet the Press and This Week with George Stephanopoulos, because, and I'm proud of this, on the back of the book is a blurb by Senator Bernie Sanders, and on the front of the book, on the front cover, a little line from Bernie Sanders, quote, "Bill Press makes the case, ... Read this book." What's that all about? Well, first of all, let's go to the Sunday shows. Chuck Todd saying to Bernie, "What are you doing blurbing this book?"
Chuck, what it has me saying is what I believe, in that the next president must be extremely aggressive in bringing more people into the political process. I think Barack Obama has done a fantastic job.
That's exactly what Bernie says in his blurb, which we'll read to you in just a second. Chuck, and I've heard Bernie make this point. He made it in the last debate. He's made it maybe everywhere he goes. That yes, President Obama has done a lot of good things, a lot of great things, but in many ways he didn't move far enough or fast enough as progressives wanted him to. So Chuck follows up with Senator Sanders.
So you think Bill Press is wrong? You don't believe he's let down progressives?
No, I think President Obama has done a fantastic job. The economy today is infinitely better than it was 7 years ago. But what we have got to do is to involve people in the political process in a way that we have not done.
And then it was George Stephanopoulos' turn. He also had picked up a copy of the book, or somebody showed it to him. And George Stephanopoulos asking Senator Sanders the same question.
I wrote a blurb, 3 lines, of what the blurb said, if you have it in front of you, is that the next president has got to be very active in bringing people into the political process. Democracy is not about 63% of the people not voting, which was the case in the last election.
So what is the blurb? Let me read it to you word for word. Bernie makes a point that we need a political revolution. You've heard him say that over and over again. We need a political revolution, a progressive revolution now in the primaries. And here's the important point, throughout the next presidency, so that we get the progressive agenda followed through all the way. Here's the senator's blurb, quote, "Bill Press makes the case why, long after taking the oath of office, the next president of the United States must keep rallying the people who elected him or her on behalf of progressive causes. That is the only way real change will happen. Read this book." And on the front, it simply says, "Bill Press makes the case. Read this book." Mm-hmm. And in the book, you'll find, and I've told you that this book, which comes out tomorrow, is available to you if you want a signed copy, an inscribed copy. Find out what it's all about. Give me a shot. Go to our website at BillPressShow.com. Read the book. I think you'll find that it is very balanced, not as maybe negative as the title might imply. In fact, I say in there that when I say buyer's remorse, it's not like, "Oh, I'm sorry I bought this damn car." No, I'm not sorry I bought the car. The car didn't perform as well as I was hoping it would. And I make the case in the book, as Bernie does, that the president's done a lot of really, really good things. The Iran nuclear deal, reopening relations with Cuba, leading the way on gay rights, saving the American auto industry. You can go down the list. I do. At the same time, he's let us down in many ways, either by not doing anything about certain issues, campaign finance reform, income inequality, worse than it was when he took office. Maybe just not going far enough in some issues. Obamacare is one of them. We are still at the mercy of the insurance companies. Single payer was the way to go. And in some cases, just continuing the policies of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, Look at the NSA, stronger, more powerful, more evasive than ever. Look at drones. I mean, killer drones all around the world. Many, many, many more drones. Tons more drone strikes under President Obama than under President George W. Bush. And if Bush had done those things, we would be raising holy hell. We should not remain silent when a Democrat is doing things that we don't believe in. And again, most importantly, I end up with the fact that the big lesson here is we progressives have to be aggressive. We have to really push. We have to really be loud and strong and keep our president's feet to the fire so that he or she, the next president, delivers on the progressive agenda. That's what the book's all about, Buyer's Remorse. Again, your signed copy, your inscribed copy is as quick as either ordering it on Amazon, but if you want a signed copy, any way you want it inscribed, we won't ask any questions as long as it's not obscene.
Well, depends on how obscene it is, right?
Yeah, I guess so. A little obscene might work. Anyhow, go to BillPressShow.com. Let us know how you want it signed. We will get it out to you right away. Buyer's Remorse will be right back and tell you what President Obama has on the schedule today.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, how about it? Hour number 3. Are you ready? Remember, you can follow us right away on TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Jump over there for live coverage. Otherwise, wait around until 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 Pacific on Free Speech TV to watch hour number 3 with Jake Tapper.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, here we go now into hour number 3, getting ready for hour number 3. So you've got to get ready to either stick with us on TawkrTV, switch over if you're not already there to youtube.com/TawkrTV, or you can catch us at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 Pacific on Free Speech TV. Either way, don't want to miss Jane Mayer. She's got a dynamite new book out, Jane Mayer from the New Yorker and the New York Times. It's called Dark Money. It's all about the Koch brothers, Richard Mellon, Scaife, Joseph Coors, and more, all those billionaires pouring money into the American political system. Jane Mayer coming up on hour number 3.
For Mike Brown. I'm sick of writing this poem, but bring the boy. His new name, his same old body, ordinary black dead thing, bring him. And we will mourn until we forget what we are mourning. And isn't that what being black is about? Not the joy of it, but the feeling when you're looking at your child, turn your head, then poof, a song will do. Or a head.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, while we have our eyes on Iowa, President Obama at the White House today. He gets the daily briefing this morning at 10 o'clock. And then he will be meeting shortly afterwards with the Health and Human Services Secretary, Sylvia Burwell. This afternoon, the president and the vice president will be focusing on cancer, a meeting with administration officials who are members of the White House Task Force on Cancer, led, of course, by Vice President Joe Biden. And that meeting will be held in the old Executive Office building just next to the White House in the Vice President's office. Interesting, the President going over to the Vice President's office for that meeting. And our briefing today at 12:30 with Press Secretary Josh Earnest, back with Jane Mayer from The New Yorker.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together. And it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity,
we began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Okay, enough rallies, enough TV spots. Let's get down to voting, which we do tonight at the caucuses in Iowa, 1,681 precincts strong. Hello, everybody. Counting on you Iowans. Get out there and make it big. It's Monday, February 1, the Bill Press Show. Good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. Whether you're listening on the radio on your local progressive talk radio station, listening on the radio on one of those two great apps, either TuneIn or iHeartRadio, or watching us on television coast to coast, Free Speech TV, it's good to have you with us with lots to talk about on the political front and other fronts. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Let us know what you think about the issues of the day and your prospects in Iowa by on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show with Peter Ogburn and Jimmy Benson leading our team here.
Hey, Bill.
Hello there.
Ray Rogers ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, keeping us looking good out there on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Peter, as you mentioned a little earlier, all the candidates are picking up, big endorsements.
Yeah.
Right? Marco Rubio got George Pataki.
Big one, sure.
Right? Ted Cruz got Rick Perry. And Bernie? Tommy Chong.
There you go.
Put out a little video.
There's one candidate that stands head and shoulders above them all, who has weathered many storms and is totally ready to be the commander-in-chief, or the commander-in-Kush, as I like to say.
What?
That's some heavy man.
What?
Only one candidate this year that has said things I truly believe in, like supporting the legalization of a fair and humane immigration policy, the legalization of a real living wage. Oh, and yes, Bernie does support that other form of legalization that I care so deeply about. The legalization of the super medicine, marijuana.
You had to go there.
Super medicine. You knew he was going to end
Yeah,
there.
medicinal marijuana. That's all he's...
Oh, yeah, man.
That's all he cares about.
Oh, yeah, totally. He's been smoking that medicinal marijuana for a long time.
It's the new book, Big Rage, Dark Money. Jane Mayer from The New Yorker and New York Times here with us to talk about it. But first, Peter.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Let's go to the movies because we have a couple different movie stories. We'll start with who won the cinema this weekend. The winner was Kung Fu Panda 3. Was the biggest movie of the weekend. Did you go see it? No, I didn't think so. Right. I wouldn't think so. It pulled in $41 million this weekend. Here's a couple of interesting stats from the movie. The second place, or from the weekend, the second place was The Revenant. Continues to do well. It pulled in $12.4 million. And Star Wars: The Force Awakens, still kicking around there, was third with $10.8 million. And we expect that this week it is going to pass $900 million domestically. So it continues to make waves.
And Leonardo got a big...
That's the next story, as a matter of fact. Yeah, let's go to the SAG Awards. The SAG Awards, because that happened over the weekend. Did you vote?
Yes.
Yeah, we all voted. We're all
Right.
SAG members. We all voted. We'll go through some of the big awards. Outstanding performance by a cast in a motion picture went to Spotlight. Outstanding performance by a female actor in a leading role was Brie Larson for Room. Outstanding performance by a male actor in a leading role went to Leonardo DiCaprio for The Revenant. So there are a couple of the big ones. Lots of other TV winners and things like that. But a big night for SAG. And finally, Bill, I know you fly a lot, right? Are you ready for a flight like this? Qatar Airways announced that they will now have the longest flight in the world. It is a flight that goes from Doha to Auckland, and 16 hours, 55 minutes is how long the flight takes.
I thought my flight to Hong Kong was longer than that. It
Really?
felt like it.
It is 16 hours, 55 minutes is how long this proposed flight would take. So quite a long flight.
Yeah. That's a lot of movies.
It's a lot of movies. You could watch all of the SAG Award nominees on that flight.
And I hope it's a long nap, too.
A couple of long naps.
Indeed. We hear a lot about all the obscene money and secret money in politics. How bad is it? Worse than you think. As you will realize if you read the great new book by Jane Mayer, Dark Money, The Hidden History of the Billionaires Behind the Rise of the Radical Right. She's got the whole story here. It's a gripping book. If you go, I've got my copy right here, about halfway through it. Again, it's far, far worse than I thought. Jane Mayer joins us on our news line this morning. You can also read sort of a little synopsis of the book in last week's issue of The New Yorker. Hi, Jane. How are you?
Hey, Bill. Good to be with you.
Thank you. Good to have you with us. So, I guess maybe before we get to there's some new figures out today about all the money awash in politics too, right? That
there are.
Makes
right.
your case.
Well, the Kochs they are actually meeting with their network as we speak out in Palm Springs, California.
Another one of those summits,
Another one of they call them seminars, but what they really are gigantic fundraisers for a tiny group of people who've got millions and sometimes billions of dollars. And so you've got about 400 to 500 people there. And they've disclosed as they're meeting. You're not allowed to know who they are, though, because they won't tell you who the identities of the members are. They call themselves investors. But the investors did let out of the bag that they spent $400 million last year pushing their point of view in American politics and policy. So that is a pretty sizable amount of money in 2015, the year before the election, just getting ready for this year's
and
spending.
what are they pledged to spend this year?
Well, altogether, they've said they're going to spend about $900 million. So I guess they've got about $500 million more to go just this year. We've never seen anything quite like it. I think that's people forget. They lose the numbers are so big you lose perspective very easily. But to have one little tiny group of people sort of funding a third party in politics that's almost like the billionaires party is really unusual. It's not politics as usual.
No,
really.
right, and that's more than either party spends, isn't it?
It is twice as much. Their budget for this 2016 cycle, that is the budget for this one group of fanatically rich and conservative people, is twice what the Republican National Committee spent in 2012. It's like they've got their own national party, really, at this point.
Now, I believe they've had a chance to see it yet this morning, but it caught my eye on Huffington Post. There's a story about Charles Koch. And the headline, Charles Koch complains about lack of influence while his super PAC alone raised $11 million, and he pumped in $3 million of that.
It's so funny. I mean, it's funny in a kind of a sick way.
But to the bank, right?
he was on NPR doing an interview. The Kochs are engaged in a kind of a public relations gambit to try to make themselves seem more benign. And so he said, I really don't give much money to politics. Well, I suppose from Charles Koch's standpoint, the $3 million that he personally put into, or his trust put into a super PAC really isn't much money from his standpoint. But from the standpoint of most Americans, $3 million put into a super PAC that now has $11 million to spend, plus the $400 million that his organization is spending. Most people would consider that a fair amount of money, and he's disappointed, though, that it hasn't given him more influence.
And I guess in terms of influence, right, that do they have any one candidate who's really their guy this year?
They are waiting to see. They're kind of on the sidelines waiting to pick. It's, of course, going to be a Republican. They always say they're nonpartisan, but it will be a Republican, and it will be one of the people that I guess they're hoping somebody will emerge to take on Trump. Because while Trump does share their views on some issues, for instance, global warming, he denies, which is one of the Koch's most important issues as a big fossil fuel company. He's kind of uncontrollable to them, unlike the other Republican candidates.
He wants to raise taxes on them.
He's talked about raising some taxes. He's talked about protecting the social safety net, particularly Social Security, which they would like to privatize. So they are to his right, and they're worried that he's not where they want him to be. The others are really pretty much falling in lockstep with what they want.
Now, one of the, what I think was so important in your book is you talked not just about the Koch brothers, but so they're not the first ones, right? They follow in the footsteps of Richard Mellon Scaife, Joseph Coors, and others.
The DeVos family has been very big. They're the people that started Amway, and they are continuing to be very big. Yes, and there are a couple of major foundations. What interested me was that a couple of these extraordinarily rich and conservative families decided they didn't like the direction of modern American politics. And around 1970, they hated the environmental movement. They didn't like the consumer movement, things like Ralph Nader, and they just didn't like what was happening with the social safety net. People were beginning to get to really like things like Social Security, and so they set out to kind of wreck it as best they could, but by building up a counter-establishment that they funded privately with foundations. So people didn't really see it, and one of the things that fascinated me was much of this spending was tax deductible.
Right.
So these super wealthy families were pushing their political point of view and getting a tax break for it.
Yeah, I mean these are, and you talk about these private. They all sort of had them at Scaife particularly, right, and now the Kochs. These private foundations, where it used to be that foundations were for if I can use the phrase, good causes, not ideological, right? But these are private foundations that are really bent on changing political or public policy and public philosophy, right?
Yeah, I mean the history was actually
you say
interesting.
They get a tax break for it.
Right. I mean, in the beginning, the granddaddy of all these foundations was John Rockefeller's foundation, and the thing was, at the time, it was incredibly controversial in American politics because people, Republicans, Democrats, everybody said if one rich family can use its money in perpetuity with no accountability to keep weighing in on public policy, it's kind of anti-democratic. So he had to agree he would only put it into things that are in the public interest, like education and scientific research. Well, things have moved a long way from then, and people forget that this was supposed to be something that was just for the public interest.
Yeah, and to give you an idea, I thought it was very illustrative. I'm looking at page 78, where you talk about the Joseph Coors and his foundation. You say, quote, a supporter of the John Birch Society, Joe Coors regarded, get this, organized labor, the civil rights movement, federal social programs, and the counterculture of the 60s as existential threats to the way of life that had enabled him and his forebears to succeed. I mean, he was afraid of the civil rights movement?
Oh, there's a long history among these funders of antagonism to the civil rights movement, both labor and the civil rights movement. I mean, it runs deep. I mean, the Kochs themselves, Charles Koch, who runs this network, was a member of the John Birch Society, which tried to impeach. People won't remember, but there were Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren, when he voted for desegregating the schools in America, this group tried to have him impeached for it. It's ugly, but what interested me, and the reason I wanted to write this, was that this group of people in particular were so far out on the far right fringe just a few decades ago, and they are so now in the center of power in the Republican Party, pulling it their way, that I thought it was like an untold backstory telling us, how did we get here? And this is it. And it's been a 40-year plan to spend just phenomenal amounts of money to change Americans' point of view.
With all that money, right, are they really in control? Do we really have an oligarchy or the risk of one, or how powerful are they really?
Well, I think that's a question that a lot of fair-minded people are asking, and people that are surprising are talking about things like oligarchy. I mean, I have a quote from Mark McKinnon, who was an advisor to President George W. Bush, a Republican president, and McKinnon says, let's just call it what it is. It's an oligarchy that's been designed by people who got rich from the system, who will get more rich from the system. But I think we're seeing, in some ways, reporters, even investigative reporters, are idealists in that we think if you get the information to the public, they'll make smart choices. And I really don't think America wants to go that direction. I think there are very few Americans who want 400 of the richest people in the country to pick the next president for them. And so you look at Bernie Sanders, for instance, he's raised now, according to the morning's figures, $33 million, and it's from tiny contributions. That's a counterbalance to this kind of thing.
Right, amazing. Average contribution for Bernie, $27, right? And no PAC, and no Wall Street money. He just sort of proved you can do it another way.
And the polar opposite of that is Donald Trump, who has only raised $2.7 million, which is small by these numbers for presidential candidates, and has loaned himself $10.8 million from his own fortune. You know, he's sort of an oligarch running as an oligarch, and the irony is people like it because he thinks he owns himself instead of being owned by someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. It is such an important book, Jane. Great job. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bill.
Dark Money. And those of us in Washington, D.C., look forward to seeing you February 18 at the Hill Center, too.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Jane, so much. You can get the book, of course, on Amazon, your local bookstore. Wonderful book. Very important book to understand what's happening in American politics today. You got to buy it. You got to read it. Dark Money. Jane Mayer.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 27 minutes after the hour, waiting. Let's see, it's just about 11 hours from now. They'll be in the caucuses in Iowa. And with the Republican caucuses, we'll know pretty soon who the winners are. Democratic caucuses may take a little longer. And one issue that has resurfaced this weekend, it just won't seem to go away, is the issue, and CNN's been covering it nonstop this morning, the issue of emails with Secretary Clinton, because now the State Department has said that 22 of the emails in her private server were actually very, very high, top secret. They weren't at the time. They've been reclassified. Hillary says, I smell a rat.
I just have to point out that the timing and some of the leaks that have led up to it are concerning. And I just want this matter resolved. The best way to resolve is to do what I asked months ago, release these, let the public see them, and let's move on.
Yep, I think that is the answer. And also, I got to say, you cannot hold it against her. They were not classified at the time. The National Security Agency has been given a chance to look at the emails before they were released, and they have asked that some of them now be reclassified as top secret. That, to me, is certainly changing the rules in the middle of the game. Nothing to these emails. I wish they'd just stop talking about them.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It occurred to me tonight, for the first time, that the long-winged insect that over and over again rams its body into the wood of my front door might not know what he's doing. He might not have a plan. Maybe that's just how he flies, and that is where the door is. And I remember you. The last time I saw you, a few weeks before we would graduate from high school, and a few days before you let a bullet dissolve on your tongue, dancing in a warehouse rave, sweat-drenched and strobe light battered, thrashing your arms back and thrusting them forward. The floor could get so bright and loud, we all slowed down to be more careful, but you kept dancing full sprint tornado, and sometimes you'd spin full weight into a wall and just spread your arms against it and sway back and forth like a lover reunited. This long-winged insect is not trying to get into the house. It doesn't know there is a house. Can't imagine a life beyond that door. All it can see is the light. You and I were both 17 when you died. And ever since then, I have envied you. How you are remembered for towering, unclaimed potential instead of living to look regret in the face. You didn't have to come home 3 weeks later and explain to your little brother why you took too much medicine. Your addiction is remembered as a tragedy, not a betrayal. Your suicide attempt became a suicide, not an unpaid hospital bill. And only tonight did it occur to me that maybe that night when you let your teeth touch metal, you might not have known what you were doing. You might not have had a plan. Maybe you had hit that door so many times you couldn't imagine it might let you through. I'm still ashamed to admit it, but I have always secretly believed you did it for me, that you wanted to show me that there is a way out of all of this. Not so that I would follow you, but so I would understand that every day that I am alive is a day that I choose to be alive. And when the music stops, you still get to keep on dancing. And when the light is so bright it blinds, you can dance with your eyes closed. And if in that dark you come up against a wall, you keep your arms out wide and you dance with the wall.
This is why you took a second job. Why you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. Why you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR TV. This is the Bill Press Show.
About 33 minutes after the hour. Here we go on a Monday, first day of February. Can you believe it? And a big day because it's a day of the Democratic and Republican caucuses in Iowa. Hoping for a big turnout, and that the bigger the turnout, maybe the more difference we're going to see in the results. Bernie Sanders has certainly said if it's a huge turnout, he wins. If it's just an average turnout, Hillary Clinton wins. I think that may be true on the Republican side as well, in terms of Donald Trump winning or the big turnout and Ted Cruz winning on a so-so turnout. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., meanwhile, our nation's capital, and we are brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers. I put them all together. SMART, the SMART Union, and the members of the SMART Union under President Joseph Sellers giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. You bet. Check them out at smart-union.org. Well, big surprise in out of Iowa yesterday, at least for me, and that was watching the Sunday morning shows, which some of you may have watched, Meet the Press or This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Senator Bernie Sanders on, and both of them ask a question to Senator Sanders about my new book. I didn't know that was coming. Talk about a surprise, almost fell off the couch. My new book, of course, comes out officially tomorrow. We've been talking about it here. Buyer's Remorse, How Obama Let Progressives Down. It includes a blurb on the back from Senator Bernie Sanders. Also one, by the way, from Keith Ellison, Congressman, our good friend, and Robert Reich, former Labor Secretary under President Bill Clinton. Let's listen to the clips from yesterday and then talk about what Bernie's blurb says and what the book says. Here is, so Chuck Todd first asks, he says, hey, here's this book called Buyer's Remorse. It's about President Obama, and you endorse it?
Chuck, what it has me saying is what I believe, in that the next president must be extremely aggressive in bringing more people into the political process. I think Barack Obama has done a fantastic job.
And Senator Sanders says everywhere he goes about the good things President Obama has done, but some of the places where he didn't go fast enough or far enough. Chuck Todd still tries to get him to attack the president. Bernie doesn't.
So you think Bill Press is wrong? You don't believe he's let down progressives?
No, I think President Obama has done a fantastic job. The economy today is infinitely better than it was 7 years ago. But what we have got to do is to involve people in the political process in a way that we have not done.
Yep, he didn't take the bait, and he made the point again that he's always made, and which I make in the book as well. George Stephanopoulos takes his turn on the same issue a little bit later.
I wrote a blurb, 3 lines of what the blurb said, if you have it in front of you, is that the next president has got to be very active in bringing people into the political process. Democracy is not about 63% of the people not voting, which was the case in the last election.
And here is the blurb. In fact, let's just get it out there.
Let's get it out there.
Bernie
Come on,
Sanders
let's do it.
Is on the front of the book, it says, Bill Press makes the case, ... Read this book. Okay, that's from the blurb. Here is the blurb itself. You've heard him say this before. Quote, Bill Press makes the case why, long after taking the oath of office, the next president of the United States must keep rallying the people who elected him or her on behalf of progressive causes. That is the only way real change will happen. Read this book, Bernie Sanders. So he's making the point, yes, we progressives have to stand up, have to be strong, have to elect the president who supports a progressive agenda, and then make sure that that president carries through. And the president has to call on us to get that agenda done. And the whole thrust of the book, I urge you to read it. I think you'll see that it's very fair and very well documented. But let's be honest about 3 things. Number one, is that President Obama has accomplished a great deal, and that's how I start the book, talking about all the good things he's done in terms of getting us closer to universal health care than we've ever been, for example, and his leadership on gay rights, his leadership on climate change, the Iran nuclear deal, bringing us back from the brink of economic disaster, saving the American auto industry, open up relations to Cuba. You could go down the list. Be honest about that, right here in the book. Secondly, let's also be honest, there are some ways in which he has let us down. Let us down if you really look at Obamacare, because it's not single payer. It still leaves us at the mercy of the insurance companies. There's still some 30 million Americans who do not have health insurance. And it leaves us at the mercy of the pharmaceutical companies who can still raise drug prices and are as almost as much as they are able to get away with. That's the downside, if you will, of Obamacare. He let us down in that for the first 4 years he did nothing about immigration reform, and still has deported. What he's done since is deported more people, twice as many people as George W. Bush ever did. He let us down in the sense that one issue, the Employee Free Choice Act, first priority of organized labor, President did nothing about it. In many other ways, let us down in the fact that on the stimulus was recommended to $1.8 trillion. The president ended up with $787 billion, and then there was no follow-up stimulus, so not that many jobs created. Let us down when he said he would cut Social Security and cut Medicare to make a deal with John Boehner. Not what we expected from a Democratic president. And then finally, he let us down, and there were some ways that he just continued the policies of George Bush on the NSA and all their domestic spying on us, and on the drones. He's quadrupled, if not quintupled, the number of drone flights under George W. Bush. So we got to be honest. There are ways where he disappointed us. And finally, we got to be honest about the fact that it's up to us, and that's the point that Bernie makes in his blurb, up to us to put some pressure on the next president, whether it's Hillary or Bernie, and get behind them and rally behind that progressive agenda and make. You know what? I guess I'd put it this way. Democrats have to learn to govern like Republicans. They don't hang back. They don't try to be loved by everybody. George Bush acted like he had a mandate and he wasn't even elected, and he forced through those tax cuts in the first 2 months of his presidency. That's the kind of fight we didn't always see from President Obama. So that's what the book is. Again, I think it's fair on both sides, and encourage you to read it and find out. If you want a signed copy of the book, it's available in your bookstores starting tomorrow. Want a signed copy of the book, go to our website, BillPressShow.com. You tell us how you want it signed, how you want it inscribed to yourself or to someone you love, a friend of yours, and we will get it out to you right away. Ray Rogers, that's her job.
All over it.
Checking those orders every day, and I'll sign them and get them out to you again any way you want. So you can do that, and also you can just call up and tell me I'm full of you-know-what. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. 866-55-PRESS. Buyer's Remorse is the book. You heard about it yesterday on Meet the Press and on This Week. Give us a call. Let's talk about it. Do you think it's fair? I know some of you are going to say, oh, come on, President Obama, he did his best. Yeah, he did. President Obama, the Republicans were in charge for 6 out of the 8 years. That's true. They were. But I think President Obama had the power. Did he use the power as strongly as we want to push the progressive agenda? Or, like me, to support him overall, but have to admit that you're disappointed in some things that he didn't follow through on, didn't take up, or in some areas where he just was like more George Bush and Dick Cheney. That's not what we elected. Not the hope and change we were looking for. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. Let's talk about it. Buyer's Remorse right here on The Bill Press Show.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
Gary the parrot stared hungrily at his owner as they drove down.
On opening body bags after Typhoon Haiyan. I can only imagine it like unearthing a scab. Zipper breaks open one by one. Mothers trying to dig through themselves an umbilical cord to lend life to a limp ghost. There is not enough relief here to hide the scent of what this child used to be. The coconut trees are not high enough to see over the inside out that was made here. Bags do not have the honor of being called burial plots. Churches ain't supposed to be mausoleums. Tacloban was morphed into ground zero. And I watch this while it snows in Madison, Wisconsin, a place where it's easier to live as a rodent than it is to be a colored person. This place drowns my people in a different way. I inhabit both places like Jigsaw corpse trying to find itself whole. These brown boys in Tacloban aren't my cousins, but I want to carry them to safety. These brown girls in Tacloban aren't my daughters, but I want to tell them they're still growing after this choking, but I'm still an ocean away, a language farther from root, a skin tone lighter than the sand, born there, raised here, home nowhere. To watch this storm is a sorry excuse for mourning. It is to need the sun desperately. It is to realize that your body is in one country while your grief is in another. To look at your house, walk to a river, and come back to no house is to be Filipino. To look at your motherland hurting from a TV screen is to be Filipino American. To watch my islands through the blue eyes of Anderson Cooper is the most American I have ever felt, but I still cry for them. And I still pray for them because God tried to make them Atlantis before they were ready to be a myth just yet, because rebuilding is the Filipinos' most intrinsic muscle memory, but most painful trauma, because relief is just a word whose Tagalog translation I don't even know, because this poem is all I can give for my country, bleeding in salt water. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord keeps trying to drown us. Hallowed be thy bodies. Thy kingdom come down in waves and winds, on earth as it is destroyed. Take us this day our daily rations, and forgive those who have tried to kill us, as we forgive those who have tried to kill us. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us whose skin has always meant sin now, and at the hour of our death. Amen.
14 minutes before the top of the hour. And of course, it is caucus day out in Iowa. And Peter, to show how serious he is about winning the Republican primary, Donald Trump actually, for the second Sunday in a row.
Yeah, I mean, he's found religion.
He went to church.
Yeah.
He and his wife.
He did. He sure did.
Went to church. The last Sunday, when the collection plate was passed, he put in 2 crisp $50 bills.
Okay.
Into the collection plate. So he was ready this Sunday, too, but a little premature.
Yeah, yesterday he went to the First Christian Church in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and they passed around the communion plates.
With
the communion plates.
With the wafers on it.
With the wafers and all that. Trump thought that was the offertory plate, and he dug out several bills from his pocket to put onto the communion plate. His staffers sort of noticed it and said, actually. So Trump owned up to it. He says, I thought it was for offering. And then he waited, and then when the actual offering plate came around, he did put some money in.
Sort of premature ejaculation.
A little bit with the money.
With the money, yeah, right. You don't pick a wafer up and put a bill down.
Right, yeah. How much I owe you for that wafer? Here, let me throw you out a couple of greenbacks here.
But of course, if you have never been to church before, you might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know that
You
The
might
Art of
make
the
that
Deal
mistake.
is his second favorite book of all time. You know what the
That's
first?
true.
You know what his first favorite is? The Bible. The Bible. I wonder if they talked about 2 Corinthians while they were at First Christian Church.
That's why they didn't invite him. That's why they didn't invite him up to the into the pulpit.
That's right.
Hey, we want to take a look at the what's happening on the Republican side here, but first, I mentioned the attention yesterday on the Sunday morning shows to a certain book written by a certain talk show host. Thomas is down in Orlando, Florida. Hey, Thomas, thanks for your call. What are you doing?
How you doing? Good morning.
Good.
Morning.
Hey,
I listen to you every day and watch you when I can. But the bottom line is, I agree pretty much. I don't agree, but I don't disagree. Yeah, we're all disappointed. I'm disappointed with my wife, but I don't tell her that.
Hey, she's not listening, I hope, Thomas.
No, she's having a procedure this morning, so I know she ain't listening. She's having an upper and a lower, so I know she's not listening. But anyway, the story is that I think Obama did what Obama did. And see, and I'm a black man, and I'm a black man that's of age, and he did the best he could. And of course, we got to always talk about that elephant in the room. Racism was the key. I mean, white America. Some of my best friends that I work with every day lost their freaking mind when Obama got elected.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that is the problem, and that's why we have the Tea Party. But we've always had the Tea Party. It was called the Klan. We've always had the Dixiecrats. We've always had some nut that was always out there trying to attack someone. But the bottom line is it takes a safe, clean village to raise a child, and that's what we should be about, helping the human race and human spirit, and definitely helping America.
Right. No, amen to that. And by the way, I make that very point that you made, Thomas, in there, that certainly one of the big things holding President Obama back, one of the 2 big things. One was Republican control of Congress, and the other was, let's face it, the color of his skin. There's no doubt about it. You cannot deny that. But at the same time, I think, again, we have to be honest. Let's just take this out of control, I believe, out of control NSA snooping on every phone call we make and every email that we send. It's not the color of President Obama's skin. It's not America's latent racism that's responsible for that decision that he made. That was a decision. He's got the power of the presidency. That was a decision that he made, that he was going to support that operation and not try to rein it in. Maybe because the intelligence agencies are just too powerful, or he changed his mind and he thinks that's necessary in our fight against terrorism. Most civil libertarians do not believe that. In that case, that's one way that President Obama let us down. I would say the same thing about the use of these killer drones. You can't just say, oh, well, of course he did that because he's black. No, yes, racism was a big factor.
Sure.
And there are a lot of people who still don't accept the fact, right, that he's a legitimate citizen or that an African American is in the White House. But you cannot give him a pass on everything he's done on that reason. Again, on the Republican side, just quickly, because we've got to take a look at it. If it's close on the Democratic side, with Hillary at last poll we saw 45 and Bernie at 42, which really means neck and neck, right? And it all depends on turnout. It's also close and all depends on turnout on the Republican. The latest poll shows Donald Trump at 28. Ted Cruz at 23, with Marco Rubio up there at 15. Rubio's goal is he knows he's not going to be first. He wants to be number 3, so that if and when either Trump or Cruz or both fail, the establishment candidate will be him, not John Kasich, endorsed by the New York Times yesterday, by the way, not Jeb Bush, and not Chris Christie. So one of those 4, if there is an establishment candidate, one of those 4 would be it. Marco Rubio wants to be third place in Iowa, and then be second place in New Hampshire, and then he'd be poised to move up if there's room to move up. And that's a big thing. And again, it comes back down to turnout. And I think Ted Cruz is right about this, that if Donald Trump wins tonight in Iowa, he will definitely win in New Hampshire. And after that, there is no stopping
him.
No stopping him. And I think the Republican establishment is starting to come around to the fact that, you know what, we could end up with Donald Trump as the Republican nominee.
They really could.
And what does that mean?
Terrifying.
7 hours, 6 minutes, and 36 seconds. Not until the caucuses start, but until CNN's coverage of the caucuses start.
Love that countdown clock.
There we go. And I'll be back with a quick parting shot, wrapping it up.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
So you're drowning in student debt, and it looks like there's no way out. Have you considered bankruptcy? Of course not. It's a dirty word, and everything you've heard says students can't file anyway. It didn't start that way. Bankruptcy laws were enacted in the 19th century to give people a fresh start. But not all debt is created equal. Take this, for example. We have you, your buddy Carlos, and your grandma Lucy. Carlos got laid off. His credit card debt was too much to handle, so he filed for bankruptcy. It will totally screw his credit, but at least he can start fresh, and after 10 years, his credit report should be fine. Grandma Lucy's home lost half its value. Now her mortgage isn't worth paying back. She says F it and decides to file for bankruptcy too. Then there's you. You didn't land that dream job, you're struggling to make ends meet, but the interest just keeps piling up. With a broken heart, you've written off the possibility of buying a home, having kids, and getting married because, hello, who wants to deal with your crazy baggage? But in reality, you want those things, and your education was supposed to get you there. Now you need a fresh start, just what bankruptcy was intended for. You try to file, like Carlos and Grandma Lucy, and that's when you realize it's not as easy for you as it was for them. In the 70s, Congress worried that students were using bankruptcy to abuse loan programs. That wasn't quite true. Still, over the years, Congress gradually stripped student debtors of their options. The Bankruptcy Reform Act of 1978 was even called discriminatory toward students by the chairman of the subcommittee. Student debt was singled out and lumped with criminal debts. Today, if student debtors try filing for bankruptcy anyway, they'll need to prove their debt imposes an undue hardship. But who's to say what qualifies as an undue hardship? Even some judges have said they don't get it. This lack of clarity in the law could work in your favor. A Harvard researcher discovered in 2012 that few students actually try to discharge their loans through bankruptcy. Of the students who filed for bankruptcy to settle other debts, only 0.1% try the same tactic on their school debt. The craziest part? Just under half of them got their debts fully or partially discharged. In other words, you can file for bankruptcy on your student loans. Depending on your situation, it might just be a matter of trying. At least there's that.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yep, who let the cat out of the bag as we've been talking this morning. My new book, Buyer's Remorse, is not officially in the bookstores until tomorrow, but yesterday it popped up as a question to Bernie Sanders on both Meet the Press and This Week. But Bernie handled it beautifully, even though he has some differences with President Obama. For the most part, Bernie said he's done a good job, and Bernie supported him most of the time, which is just what I say in my book. I start out by giving President Obama credit for all the good things he's done on the economic recovery, saving the auto industry, leading on gay rights, the Iran nuclear deal, renewing relations with Cuba. But I also point out the areas where he's let us progressives down. No single payer, no public plan option, no crackdown on Wall Street, wholesale spying by NSA, and expanded use of killer drones. But the main message is we progressives have to put pressure on our next president, Hillary or Bernie, to embrace the progressive agenda and run with it full bore. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Thanks for being with us today. We'll be looking at the caucus, talking all about it tomorrow with Arthur Delaney and Igor Volsky, among other guests. We want all of you to come back too.
This is the Bill Press Show.